Today's program description, Improve All Things Data in the Supply Chain, is as follows. Now is the ideal time for companies to improve their supply chain by leveraging their data in an industry that is rapidly becoming more and more data-driven. In this webinar, learn why the current industry supply chain is outdated, what data-driven companies like Amazon and Walmart are doing, and how you can stay competitive too. Pulakesh, Barua, and Stephen Lay will cover how to improve data quality with trading partners, optimize data cleansing with business rules, increase sales, and avoid chargeback with better data, and how companies are utilizing gap analysis to identify inefficiencies in their silo processes. Presenting today's program is Pulakesh, Barua, and Stephen Lay. Pulakesh is the president at DataZen Engineering, an innovative provider to help customers manage and grow their businesses by transforming data into actionable information. Experienced in global business operations with diverse experience, working in North America helping customers succeed in business process engineering and supply chain data management. And Stephen Lay, sales at DataZen Engineering, a highly capable, passionate, and self-disciplined professional with experience in leadership, sales, and entrepreneurship in the data landscape. So without further ado, I am pleased to turn the program over to Pulakesh and Stephen.
Thank you, Kate. Good morning, everyone. Again, my name is Pulakesh Barua. I'm really excited, and thank you again for joining the webinar today. So let me first make sure that everyone could see. I guess Kate could confirm that. Kate, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. So today we want to talk about what is the problem with data in the supply chain, and then how to address them. So let's talk about the data in the retail industry first. So how often do you run into data discrepancies between you and your trading partner? So I'm assuming for some it is quite often. For others, it could be rarely. So it really depends. But we all run into data issues at some point or the other. So how do you communicate data internally or externally and the challenges that come along? Well, email with attachments works great for some, but may not be for others, especially when you have more data that email can handle. So therefore, FTP, or File Transfer Protocol, or API, Application Programming Interface, or even through some portal. So that is just a communication medium. So underlying data problem still causes heartburns between you and your trading partners. So how do you handle the error-prone data most of the time, right? So generally speaking, it depends. So some companies have very good data scrubbers in their team, along with data architects, data experts. So they are generally the source of truth for the most part, handling data, working with or within the company. But then they need a tool or a platform to conduct their job more efficiently, right? And finally, are the data about your products or service is as good as your product and service? Well, with the advent of Amazon reviews and Q&A, consumer looks for data that they need to know about their product or service that they are getting ready to invest on. So oftentimes, it is the e-commerce data that drives up sales, even if a competitor product is a better product. So as you can see, bad data not only causes problems, but also is a single most catalyst for lost business. Think about how companies like Amazon and Walmart are investing heavily towards their data-driven business? So the answer is simple. Data is the new oil. So good data need is becoming a must-have in the supply chain. So how do you improve supply chain data and the processes along with it? Let's talk about what that means. So for e-commerce, you need a certain baseline for transacting data. First, all products must have good product descriptions along with transactional type data such as pricing, barcode, UPC code, lead time, packaging dimensions, stock indicator. Second, documents and downloads, super important, such as brochures, catalogs, handouts, drawings, installation guides. Third, how about product attributes and values, such as color, length, width, height, depth, product-specific details. Fourth, images, super important. You have to have product photos, right? 360-degree images, how-to videos, CAD drawings, for example. And finally, fifth, I call it enriched content, meaning long descriptions, keywords, features and benefits, industry norms like Prop 65. So how good is your compliance and e-commerce data today? So having an accurate and timely data between you and your trading partners can avoid chargeback. So in our words, protect your business from chargeback. Make sure you clearly describe your products and service policies, especially if you sell online. And finally, a retailer received wrong items that they're receiving deck, and there isn't a way to report that to the supplier for future compliance. So at this point, I'd like to hand it off to Stephen, but I want to make sure that Stephen can, he had some technical difficulties. If he can jump in.
Pulakesh, Stephen isn't currently on the webinar just yet.
Okay. So I know that he had some difficulties, so I'll just take it on from here. So retailers, you have vendors, suppliers, you have customers, dozens to hundreds of trading partners that you're working with. In a perfect world, you would have all that in uniformity, right? So instead of you have different data, different barcodes, different dimensions, sizes, weights, invoices, you also communicate differently. Different systems in place, different internal processes. So these differences become an accepted burden of doing business on both ends. So you need a certain standard for the sake of compliance. Frustrations on communication channels, for instance, trying to get an answer on something and stuff is hard to reach. Some kind of technology like an EDI or a portal or a true API is necessary. Point is, this slows down the entire supply chain. Right product pricing for quotes, dealing with violations if not corrected, may lead to multiple occurrences. So especially when you talk about chargeback and that leads to more tensions. Ideally, invalid EDI data is captured early in the process and communicated automatically. Streamlining your approach from root point is key. Otherwise, doing vendor compliance is the hard way, just leads to more warehouse inefficiencies. So as you know, data is the new oil. It's hard to have clean data. Most companies we speak with are doing the same thing. They have a team of architects, data architects, analysts, developers working in data land, trying to figure all this out. So not enough resources manually identify, assess, or process these errors so the team can validate the data. Send it off to merchandising team who can begin negotiating and that sort of thing. So what if you had some experts who can come in with really nice service, who genuinely care about your data, assess your data from root point, and customize, especially to your system, to optimize your data handshake. So instead of going back and forth manually with this error data like flu, what if you could automate by injecting some business rules to improve your data quality and prevent that happening again in the future? So you probably have some templates or business rules already. So we had been doing this for over 10 years, with large companies like, Schneider Electric, Lowe's, Home Depot, over 40 million data points. To start off with, what you do is a gap analysis process. Very simple. It's a process that you know exactly how we can come in and how it works today to paint a picture step by step on where you want to go. So from the very least to providing your data quality to becoming data-driven and providing business value going forward. You know the saying that if it's not broken, don't fix it, right? Well, it's not like we're trying to fix anything. It's more the mindset of, if you have something working and then you see improvement, why not double down on that, right? And optimize that improvement. So if you're doing something right and increasing sales, why not scale that up to 20 times or 30 times? So you could do nothing, but how do you know that? So in essence, take your car, say for a $25 car inspection where it could save you thousands in the long run. Or if you're trying to find out the value of your house, why not get an inspection to find that out? And then you can see if you can get a discount or how much more you could sell it for, depending on which side of the spectrum you're in. So no company we have spoken with did not have the data issues or inefficiencies. It's just a matter of what, how, and especially in the retail industry where things moves really fast. So when you become data-driven, you can say, look, see, this is where we can reduce cost, increase efficiency, and increase sales. So e-commerce is actually going to all commerce as we all know it, such as virtual shelves, smart mirrors, beacons. For example, if you're going into a mall and you're trying to get a pair of shoes, but you're not finding what you're looking for, and there's no one to help you out, right? So you're going to, chances are, go online and find more details about that. And guess what? You're going to go to the next store where you have that, what you're looking for, and you will end up buying that. So because of that one little nick in the chain, you could potentially lose a sale which adds up quick, and you don't even know it. So what's even more important than the increased sales is the data analytics. Then you can actually track the data and offer business value. So we know these things take time. We're not trying to reinvent the wheel, right? We're trying to get the wheel spinning. It's like if you have dial-up, why not go towards fiber? We're not trying to throw a government here. We're just trying to streamline and make it more efficient, optimize your process. Make sure that you're aware that give us a chance to the experts, right? So if you remember, we spoke about data specialists, architects, data scrubbers. These are the folks who works with product management, offer management, making sure the data is kept accurate and not stale. First, they need a platform to search, to view, to correct, and works with offer management or product management to identify the trading partners, including the data transmit mechanism. Remember, we talked about FTP, as simple as that, file transfer protocol, or more complex like API, or application programming interface driven. Second, we talked about gap analysis. So this is the phase the use cases are defined or optimized if they already exist. Essentially, this is the blueprint for discovering gaps in your data set. And guess who does the best? Well, you guessed it. The top data-driven e-tailers in the world, they have these things as standards, data standards. Well, let's talk about before and after. Remember, we talked about application programming interface, especially for the tech-savvy bunch, right? So we worked with a customer before they were receiving the data in simple text files over secured FTP. So this customer is a global entity, and therefore the amount of data is huge, which is impossible to deal with from a trading partner perspective. So they have to have a solution that is localized. So therefore, three things that were put in place. First, a data compression engine to compress the data and then encrypt it, because the global data has to be secured and localized. Second, create a flexible process to ingest the compressed and encrypted data that they have. And then finally, third, ingest the data directly into the customer's data warehouse gracefully. As you can see, the whole process is more efficient based on data standards. So not only from a use case optimization standpoint, but also from a data delivery standpoint as well. So at this point, I'd like to open it up for a few questions, or if you have any questions, be free to answer them. So Kate, I'm going to hand it off to you.
Sure. Thank you, Pulakesh, for all of your insights and techniques here. And so I'd like for us to address some of the questions that we've received. How do you actually improve data in the supply chain?
Great question. Well, we start off with the gap analysis process. So during this gap analysis process, we first analyze the existing use cases to understand the current process or processes as how it is working today in your supply chain, and then document that. Next, we'll look for improving the processes within the existing set of these use cases as we begin to redraw the new or optimized use cases. Again, we don't focus on technology, but processes first. Technology comes later. So it is possible that what you have in terms of technology is good enough. And finally, we begin to dive deeper into the actual all things data within the processes as we begin to redraw into new or optimized use cases. So this process generally takes a very short couple months. Example, we have a customer who has millions of invoices in an old archaic system in some IDX or TIFF file formats. So it's like pulling teeth to make any changes. But they need to maintain the financial records that are tied to supply chain for 7 years. So we work with them to streamline the existing processes and apply some technology, in their case, moving millions of content from their archaic on-base system to a more modern enterprise content management system like Documentum. So now their finance guys or AR AP team can look at those invoices not only from an analytics standpoint, but also things like invoice number, data, and customer details, but also track the data in their supply chain. The data from their product information management system, the PIM system, is now matched to their e-commerce data in their supply chain. And then based on some financial hierarchy. So that's just the beginning of how these things are done as an example I just laid out. So Kate, any other question?
Thank you. Okay. Is there often a direct match between part numbers and their associated enriched content or even documents and downloads?
This is a great question. Our data and technology teams deal with this every day for companies. Now, I'll be willing to bet that majority of the companies do not have documents and downloads data in their supply chain, along with enriched content at the part number level or the SKU level, right? Or the catalog number level. Except for, guess what? The e-tailers we spoke about. For instance, it's not a surprise that if I, as a small business, want to sell something in Amazon Marketplace today, first thing I got to do is to fill out a template about my product, and more importantly, include at a minimum certain data sets. And that could include things like images, features and benefits to Amazon standards. I can't just take my iPhone, take a picture, and then send it on to them. It's not going to work. I have to abide by certain image standards that they have. So majority of the companies do not have sufficient data and content at the part number level. Now, they might have sufficient data at the taxonomy level or hierarchy level, but that is not good enough if you're doing business online, especially e-commerce. Also, companies spend a lot of time investing in tools or technology, but not enough time on the data or processes or attributes or content. So you may end up with a very pretty and sleek system, but as far as the data goes, you have gaps. So as a result of that, it impacts your supply chain and bottom line. So as stated before in the presentation, data about your product is as important as the product itself. Any other question, Kate?
Yes, I have another one here. Could you describe an example of a business rule to improve data quality?
Absolutely. So we created a cloud-based application deployed over currently Microsoft Azure with an easy-to-use customer interface that allows multiple users to normalize the RFQ data or request for quote in spreadsheet format. So that is readable and presentable when someone is doing a data lookup so that they can find out things like pricing, descriptions, and things like that when submitting the RFQ, request for quote. However, we found that their spreadsheet has huge gaps, starting with the part numbers and descriptions. So we created a business rule where the first pass is simple. In database world, we call it inner join, or one-to-one match to the SKU or part number, UPC code, barcode, and descriptions, right? So in the second pass, we did an outer join, meaning all non-matching data across the board. Third, we segregated the non-matching data from outer join event we talked about, and then improvised the data based on corrective actions. So eventually that corrected data is fed back to their database or data warehouse for data cleanup process. So when we first started on a data set, the matching percentage is about, say, 50–60% after initial data cleanup. But once we improved the process or data within that, we saw a significant increase to about 90% plus. So how did that help them? That allowed them to broaden their quote, resulting more net business, because before they were not matching up. Any other question, Kate?
Great. We have one last question. Do you have the ability to import the data from the various data sources? I see in your website something called DataZen BSL.
Yes. So we help you streamline the process of both data downloads and uploads from various sources. So we created a cloud-based, as I discussed earlier, called DataZen BSL. So in short, called Business Services Layer. So product managers, offer managers, data architects, typically the product information or marketing folks working in the supply chain who loves these platforms. Why? Because it helps them to do their day-to-day business dealing with data that improves, scrubbing the commercial, logistics, technical data for the supply chain. So it has been working great for them. So we do have, and feel free to reach out to us. We have our contacts here. We would love to have a one-on-one demo for you if you're interested.
Great. Thank you, Pulakesh, for all of your insights and everyone for your questions. A link to the on-demand version of this webinar will be sent to you following our program. For those of you who have further questions about the material covered in today's presentation or whose questions were not answered in the Q&A portion, please feel free to contact Pulakesh directly. Thank you and have a great day.
Thank you very much, Kate. Thank you, everyone. Hope you have a great rest of the day.